Hello, and let's start off with an audio check, given that that's been a problem in the last few live streams. I'm ED-SKaR, and today I will be doing some 3D modelling. I've got a few projects that I might look at. I might look at my train, although I don't have any particular thing to jump into. There's several things that need doing. Some windows, do that properly, front and back. Connection point, haha, we have sound, thank you. Connection point for the rails, or I could start a completely different project, a much smaller project, because I have lights. I have a Nerf magazine adapter that could probably use with a button, because they decided to not put a button in it for some reason. A decision which has caused all sorts of problems with compatibility, particularly when it comes to 3D printing magazines. Let's give it a minute for other people to arrive, and we'll see if there are any opinions in the chat about what I should start with. Just reading through the old chat, from Foxy Bits, my research for the auto redactors. Engel says you need to make a device for measuring small angles. Now you see, if I knew how, it wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, that's something that I've noticed a few times, or mentioned a few times. Getting into very small places and measuring an angle, particularly when it's on the inside, but on the outside as well, is often quite difficult. I usually resort to my GCSE level angle measuring tool, which is clear, and I can just kind of hold it over and just kind of look through it and guess, and it's not exactly precise. I usually get it correct, because usually there are 45 or 30 degrees in pretty much everything. I don't know why those, I know why 45 comes up so often, but I'm not sure why 30 degrees comes up quite as often as it does. But anything other than that, if it's a multiple of 10, it's fairly easy. If it's a multiple of 5, it's fairly easy. Anything else, and it gets a bit more difficult to pick it out. Also, that I should make something with a cat on it. How do you do a cat? How do cats? How do cats? How do cats? Can I select them? Hello, Manchester Nerfer. What about making an old-looking wooden bridge that's on its last legs? A wooden bridge would be an interesting thing to do, particularly with wood grain. Actually, sculpting in wood grain would be somewhat of a challenge for me, because that's not something I've done before. Let's go for nope. That's not exactly what a cat's nose looks like. I failed miserably on the nose. And then I guess another ellipse for the there you go. Cat has been made. Right, now that we've wasted our time with all of that, let's just quickly delete that sketch and start again. Right. And let's actually go for the magazine catch for the worker talon adapter. So for those that don't already know, I think everyone in the chat already knows, the inside of the Talon magazine adapter has the magazine catch with no lever or arm or any such useful mechanism for releasing it, and simply an angled surface in the magazine catch pushes it out of the way when you pull on the magazine, which means that the magazine is not particularly secure. And so if I create a different version of the magazine catch and then a separate piece with an angled surface on it, and then a separate piece from the bottom that pushes up on that angled surface, I can then create a button mag release, and it can be a lot more secure. So first of all, let's copy the original. I need to get the geometry from this so that when I put in, when I print out a replacement, it will fit. If I can get my calipers to reset, there we go. .9. Let's go for 11.8. .4. This thing is made with some odd numbers. It's not an imperial, is it? Yeah, 15.5, so let's go with 15.4. I'm making sure that mine is slightly smaller than the original, so that it's definitely going to fit. Interesting, that looks like it actually has a slight angle. And we go back to talking about angles again, because there's no way that I can measure that angle with this tool. No way at all. How would I even begin? I mean, I could line up that. I'm just going to make a guess at 10 degrees? 5 degrees. Let's not go too haywire. So 170. And how long does that need to be? .2. And I can come back to the rest of that in a moment. Let's go from here. Measure out. Again, weird numbers. 8.6, which we'll make 8.5. What are you lined up with? Okay, good. I want to make sure that's lined up with square, not with the offset. Haha, finally, something that matches. Something that's a nice, neat number. 13, which we're, of course, going to make 12.9. Hello, Valor. How are you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you about. You were working on something cool last time I heard. I can't remember what it was, so I apologise for that, but yes. Looking forward to seeing whatever it was, I'm sure. 14.47, so we'll go for 4.47, so we'll go for 4.4 to give ourselves that clearance. Now we can go and fill in this shape. So we have an angled surface here, which is what pushes against the top of the magazine when you insert it. And then we have a small flat surface here, and that's just to give this some volume to actually be even remotely strong. I can probably just draw this line, which is 2mm, quite neatly 2mm. And then just join that to there, and that will probably be fine. Always working on things. Good to hear. Good to hear. I have I hit my I counted up recently. I'm not sure if it's a record, but I was working on 23 different projects at the same time. Some of those projects were just sitting waiting for me to edit video. Some of them were sitting on my workbench waiting for me to, you know, cut stuff, but yeah, more than 20 projects on the go at the same time. I've since finished off a lot of them, and I'm kind of keeping my options a little more open rather than having quite so much on at the go at the same time. I always like something to disappear off and do something else, rather than be stuck on one project for a while. But yeah, it gets too many sometimes. And that is neatly 10mm thick, so as before. Sorry, I've got something itchy on my face. Spider crawling on me or something. Let's go for 9.9. And that is a rough recreation of the part. It's got some nice filleted edges, but I don't really care about that at the moment. It absolutely can do. Is there an easy way to get a center point? There is. It just gave me the center point, and now it's not letting me have the center point. Fine, I'll do it the old-fashioned way. Corner to corner with some construction lines. There we go. Right. Now I can pull a circle that fits the spring. Today I am replacing the magazine catch on the Worker Talon magazine adapter. So this is the old design with that has no lever. And just you pull on the mag to pull it out, and that's a terrible idea. It's a terrible design, so why would you even bother? But to make it work, I'm currently recreating this piece, and I'll have an angled surface out here somewhere, and then I'll have a second piece that pushes up from the underneath like that and pushes against that surface. And I'm just at the point where if I pull a circle here, that is about 5mm. Finish sketch, pull that. How deep is it? It is 11mm deep. So that is now the existing part recreated. There's some lightning cuts in the side, which I'm not going to bother recreating because this we 3D printed and this original part was injection molded. So to make this design that I'm thinking of, yeah, it has its places, but this is a full-size Magwell adapter, so there's plenty of space. Plenty of space to work with. And there are a lot of this specific design that's sitting on shelves, not being used because of the insecurity of holding the magazines tightly. And so by making this, not only do I get mine back into service, a lot of other people can as well. Right. So I need to offset because there's a piece of plastic, it's a rail sort of piece that's right here. So I need to offset from here by a certain amount to give clearance for that. My caliper's playing up today. I'm constantly having to reset. So we've got 1.9 something, basically 2 millimeters. So if we make it 2. I want a decent amount of clearance here, so 2.25. Let's give a 1/4 mil clearance. That's plenty. And then also from here, measuring from the same point to there, gives me 9.75, which is odd. So if I do the same thing, yep, so 9.75, I'll give another 1/4 mil clearance, so 9.5. So that's where my arm can be, sticking out the back. But how long can it be? So if I take the magazine catch at its rearmost position, and then I measure to the inside of the back of the magazine well, I get 14.6. Odd numbers. But if I just... 14 millimeters is going to be absolutely plenty, so I can make this as a full line. 14 millimeters, there we go. And that does look about right. So I've got this amount of gap for the plastic panel, and then this comes out into the open. Let's see if I can show that on my absolutely terrible webcam. So this panel here, this plate, is what I've just made a gap for, and I've made it so that it comes almost up to the back edge here when it's fully open. Now I need to decide on another thing I can do is when the magazine catch is fully forwards, so locking the magazine in, how much clearance does this bottom one have? Which will be much less. Hard to measure, but let's get my calipers in as best I can. Basically roughly 5 millimeters, so if I give it 5.5, I'll just check on that. Val has sent me a picture of, ooh, very nice, very stylish, as many of the things that Valor makes is. I'm looking forward to seeing, is that going to be a full video? But looks seriously cool. So, somewhere in here I need an angled surface this way with material on this side of it and a gap on this side of it, so that when I push up something from the middle, it pushes against that angled surface and pulls this whole mechanism, or this whole part, this way. Nice. That's going to be cool. Well, it is cool, but it's good. But good video. Right. So, could I just fill in that whole block? I could, but I sort of want to use... Again, I'm going to try and hold up to the webcam. Does that help? That doesn't help. Blue background? No, can't really see. There is a little panel right here. And I think I want to use that as a guide for my second piece. Yes, that's unfortunately always the way. Technology keeps breaking down and you constantly have to replace it. Hello, Socially Supreme. I am making a replacement design for a Nerf magazine catch. This is the Worker Talon and Talon adapter, and it requires, it's just a friction fit and you pull on it to remove the magazine, which is terribly insecure, and so I'm making a much more secure system with a button. Particularly, this is to go with 3D printed magazines such as the Vorpal, T-Pan Vorpal, and others, that if you put it into this magwell will lock into place perfectly well, but then you can't remove it because the angled surface in a massive design flaw, the angled surface is that one there. Yeah, no way I'm going to be able to show that on my terrible webcam. Terrible webcam. Just stop complaining and get this done. Right. So how much travel do I actually have? And what ratio do I want to put on my button? There's only 3.5 mil of travel. That's not much. So even if I have a 2:1 ratio, that's 7 millimeters. I mean, a 7mm magazine catch, particularly if it's a button, that's fine. So, yeah, let's go for a 2:1. So to achieve that, what have I got here? 8.5. So if I make it 4.5 wide and then 9 tall. Does that do what I want it to? No, it doesn't. That doesn't do what I want it to at all. Because this is my gap. Whoops. Hello, Molten Middies. How are you doing? I need to come down by at least, for a decent amount of strength, probably 3 mil. Actually, I've got some other stuff I've printed nearby. Yeah, 3 mil's nice and strong. So if I come down by 3 and then do my no, line. Let's go 4.5 and 9. And then I can fill in this. that's sort of what I was expecting. Oh no, of course. If I move this across, because at the moment this part has a point at the end, very small. Oh, goodbye, Molten Minis. Called away as soon as you arrived. Oh well. Maybe next time. Yeah, so this part has a point as one end, and the corresponding part here can have this massive, great big, like blocky surface as the open end. That's inefficient. What I should do is balance the two. So what have I got? I've got an extra 4 mil. So if I go 4.5, 6.5, so I add on half of that 4 mil, and then here, so I go down by the same 9, but then I go across my 2 mil offset and join that up, and then from here fill in the rest of that. There we go. So I've got a much blockier end to this, so this is going to be stronger, and I've still got a reasonably blocky end here. They're now even as well, so yes, that should be good. What you working on, Supreme? Left arm to a right arm. Oof. Ooh, good grief. Depending on what type of arm that is, yeah, that's difficult. Let's join all of this. So is that what I wanted? So we've got this, which is going to run on the top of that plate, of the lower plate. We've got the gap here for the upper plate. I don't like that this is just all open here. I'm not a fan of that, but really the only... unless I built an entire frame to make, to put these parts in, that's sort of the only way of doing it. That's going to be strong enough. This part will be printed this way up, so all of the layer lines are going to run through this way, and so this, even though it's quite small, will still be fairly strong because the layer lines aren't going across it, they're going through it. Same with this part. They're not, the layer lines aren't going like this, they're going through this part. So it's probably going to be strong enough. So now let's work on the button. Yeah. Hello, Carrick. Yes, work is happening. Work is being done. Let's go for a 0.25 clearance here. Actually, I might go for a bigger clearance to this. I want to go straight up. Yeah, I want this part to be able to go fully, like this second part. I want it to go fully up here, so that the magazine catch actually has full travel. Yeah, fillets will stop stress fractures, stress points. I'll get to that later. I'm blocking out the parts first. Let's see. This is going to go here. With the, yeah, so this is the highest point of this part. So in this orientation, the magazine catch is open. I think that'll be fine. So if I run that and then extend this all of the way down to, no, from there, yes, thank you. So where is that? That's the top of this line. So I can go all of the way to the bottom of the shell, which is 36.7 millimeters. I actually don't need to go all the way to the end, do I? No, in fact, I need to leave a lot less than that because I need for the button to be able to actually move. So, how much is it moving? So we've got 2:1 ratio. So the original part is moving 3.5, so it's moving 7 mil. So my 36, I need to take off 7, it's 29, plus some clearance. Let's make it 20, 28, 27? 27. Now from here, probably continue this down by a little, just for the sake of having some clearance. Let's throw in a construction line here and then measure from that to the back surface, which is an easier measurement to make than most of the ones I've done today. 13 point... Oh, no, just make sure it lines up. 13.3. So this is going to need quite a bit of clearance, so I'll make it 13 dead. And then fill in just this bit. And I can actually block in this whole lot. Yeah, that's sort of what I meant. That is sort of what I meant. I should also come up to on the inside here, there's any chance you can see that? This little circle here. It looks to be a... I'm not actually sure what it's supposed to be, because there's no... Oh wait, yes there are. Yeah, there are pegs molded on one side and ports for the pegs on the other side, most of which are broken. It's probably just for the glue. That's fine. But without cutting that away, let's work out where it is. So this is in the highest position, so I'll measure off the top one, kind of the underneath of the top one, and then when I measure the bottom one, actually I don't need to measure, yes I do need to measure the bottom one. When I measure off the bottom one, I measure off the top, but then offset it by the 7 mil of movement that I have. So from here, we go down by 13 mil. Being quite generous with that, just so I have no intention of this causing me troubles later on. And from there to there. I'm trying to also, along this whole process, I'm trying to account for the draft angle, which is quite strong. Worker uses a very strong draft angle in just about everything. Do I have... No. The Worker Hurricane, when I made iron sights for that, has just a really, really strong draft angle. But because I'm putting parts along the midline, I'm having to account for double the draft angle because it's on both sides in opposite directions. So that was fun. A scrap marine. Interesting. looking like just shy of 9mm. So what I'll actually do is go for 8.5. Because that can be loads of room. Loads of room. The space between them is 22.5. We have to minus off our 7mm of travel, so that's 15.5. And then I can also cut away a bit more than that, just for clearance. And again, I can be quite generous with that. So I can make this 14. 14 should be fine. 14 is not fine. What did I... I made such a clearance off of that. Did I really make that much clearance? How much is on this? Oh, it's only 2mm. So if I just make this 12 and then join out like this. Yeah. That is hideous. But as long as it's functional, it doesn't matter. Right. Let's pull it into 3 dimensions. Let's just make sure that it's actually... Nope. Yeah, that's sort of correct. Probably. So this will now be the button part of it. This will be the piece that protrudes, so we'll have to cut a hole in the base of the magazine adapter for this to come out of, and that button will be what we push up on to make it work, to make it release. So we need at least 7mm because that's our travel. We need at least another 3mm because that 3mm because that was the clearance I gave there, I think, and then an amount because you don't want to push it flush because that's going to get kind of fiddly and difficult, particularly if it starts to wear over time. You'll end up having to push it inside and that will cause trouble. Probably not by much, maybe just another 5mm. So if I make it 15, yeah, sort of like that. And then just for comfort, let's give this a bit of a rounded edge. That's probably all this needs. I think this is the point where I have to go off and test print that, which brings me to my next point. My printer's clogged up last week and I haven't even been into the printer room to look about fixing it since then. I should probably go and do that. Should probably fix the printer so that I can actually print these parts out and test them. Probably. but I haven't. Let's save this. Any questions about this specifically before I move on to another project? I might look at the railway and having a connector piece for the rails. Or I might do something else if someone has a good idea. Just having a thought, because this is a 2-to-1, the strength of this spring is then halved when it comes to pushing this part back down. Is that a problem? Does that make enough of a difference? If you push the magazine in, your hand kind of sticks there for a tenth of a second, which is probably enough for this to lock back into place even with half the string strength. I mean, I could easily cut for a magazine catch there. Sorry, for a second spring to go in there, which wouldn't need to be much. It just needs to be enough to get this out of the way, because if this part isn't pushing the... If the original mag catch isn't pushing the button down, then it just has to use its original spring in exactly the same way as the original part. But if this drags on it, particularly the friction here, or the friction around the hole that's cut here, I don't think it'd be a problem though. I guess that's one of those things I have to print it out and test it and see. Yeah, okay, so that part's saved. Yeah. I think I'm done with that for the moment. I'll have to test. Yes. So, actually, let's see if I can do some movement to show how it actually works. So this piece is the button. So this will move by 7 millimeters. And this part will move this way. So that's my X by 3.5. Yeah. So this is in the locked position. And so this shape here will protrude into the gap at the back of the magazine, and that will hold it into place. Then when you push this button, it works on this angled surface, which then pushes this part back to this. So this is now the unlocked position so that you can take the magazine out. The reverse is there is a spring in here. So as soon as you let go of the button, the spring pushes this part back this way, and hopefully the angled surface again pushes the button piece down, and so it ends up in that position. And yes, in the locked position, this button in the lower, as far down as it will go, will have a hole cut into the bottom of the plastic, which will be so just along this join here. You'll need to cut a hole in there for that button to come out, and that's sort of that. That's sort of it. I might need to make a little extra, like I might need to extend this surface a little bit to make sure that it doesn't rattle. I want it to get to just to the point where it's touching the bottom, so that the spring up here is just touching here and it's just pushing down, because that'll stop it from rattling around. But to get that measurements right, I mean, either I'd have to be significantly better with calipers, or I could just print it out and find out all of the mistakes that I've made. I find it's quicker that way. You can work on several projects at once rather than stressing over just one. Seems to be... Oops, sorry. Punching the microphone. Giving you all a headache. Seems to be just about where I want it. There's enough overlap here in the open position that it's not going to like jam or bind up. Yeah. Yeah, that's done. Right. Shall I look at making some kind of... Yes, I need to fix the printer before I can do a test print. Thank you. Yes, obviously. I've had an idea about how to do this. Right, so this is my 32 to 28 millimeter hero scale railway, suspension railway for tabletop war games such as Warhammer 40k, Necromunda, Frostgrave, Dungeons and Dragons, all sorts of other things. I will probably be making science fiction and fantasy and magical versions of all of this kind of stuff, but I want to just get the functional system laid down so that everything is compatible with each other. Likely this would only ever be used as terrain, however, the opportunity to put a motor in it and actually make a moving thing exists, and so I'm trying to keep my options open with that. But previously I have made a rail, bogey, let's actually highlight them. The rail, I have made bogies, which allow the carriage and the rail to be at different angles but still joined up. I have several wheels which make the bogey roll along the rail quite nicely, and I have at the bottom the carriage. But if we have many rails, many sections of rails, we need a way to join them together, and I have had an idea of how to do that with a mirrored geometry. So anything that's raised up on one side will have a matching recess on the other side. So everything that's here, I might raise something up on this side, I'm going to recess equally on this side. There needs to be enough clearance between the two so that it can so that the extended part fits into the recessed part on the other piece. Particularly with 3D printing, I'm going to add a generous clearance, but what it should mean is that as the two parts come together, if I've got an extension and a recess on both sides, they'll fit together, and then you can run something through this from the side, a screw or it's a very secret thing that I will mention in a moment. That will just lock it into place, and it'll be theoretically nice and secure. Make a loop-de-loop. Given how I'm going to design this, it could be possible to make a loop-de-loop. Loop-de-loop. I've heard that expression before. I'm assuming you mean a hero scale roller coaster. Well, now you've said that, I have to do it. Now you've said roller coaster, I have to make a hero scale roller coaster. Great. As if I didn't have too many ideas already. Amazing. Right. So what I actually should have done is that first, because I only need this. So how much space do I have to work with? If I go to here, I've got 11.464 exactly, as you can see on screen, of clearance. I should actually work a little bit over here so that you can actually see what I'm doing, because on your view, like, there's a webcam right here, but on my screen it's not there. It's actually on my second screen over here, which is where I'm monitoring the stream. Anyway. So that was 11 millimeters basically. halve that to 5.5. I can probably go slightly more than that because I'm not going to make it full size. So I can probably go 6 either way. So how big can I make it? 8.85, 8.85. I don't need to make it full size. In fact, I don't need to make it anywhere near full size. I mean, 5mm is probably enough. So if I make one side slightly too big, 5.1, and I make the other one slightly too small, like 4.8 is probably generous enough. Then if I pull the smaller one by how much is enough? I don't actually need that. Yeah, 5 mil is going to be enough. 5 mil is going to be plenty. But if I actually only pull it by 4.5. Yep. And then I need that sketch back. This let me click by -5. What that should mean is that this peg here should fit into this hole, which means that if I mirror this, or if I replicate this geometry on every single piece of rail, no matter whether it's a straight line or a corner piece or a loop section, if I really must, every rail piece will fit with every other rail piece, and both ends of any rail piece will fit with both ends of any other rail piece, and that leaves and that makes it very easy to make a like any type of layout with a relatively small number of parts. For example, if I had a left-hand turn piece like this, if I just rotate that and plug it in the other way, it becomes a right-hand piece. Same part, and it can go left or right with the same curvature. How I do curvature is a different question, and that's something I'm going to actually have to do some research before I get to doing. But this is not going to actually lock together. This will fit together, but it won't hold in place. If you just kind of put these together like this, they'll just kind of fall apart as soon as you try and move anything around it. And so, let's make a locking system, which is really, really easy, because if I project, if I start off from the middle of this line and go mm, I want to make sure there's enough clearance for print tolerances, so I probably want to go, ooh, I need to go more in one direction than the other by a tiny amount. Yeah, I need to go more in this direction. Pretty sure I need to go more in that direction, and then 2 in this direction, because that means if they're not perfectly aligned, sorry, that means if they don't go perfectly flush, the holes can still be aligned. That is right. That is right. Let's go for 2.2 though, because 2.2 will allow for a 0.2 millimeter gap between the ends of the rails, and that will mean, or yeah, 0.2 millimeter gap between the sections of rail in the software, so that when you print it, you've got a little bit of extra space. Yeah, that'll be fine. So then at the end of each of these lines, we build a 2 millimeter hole. And the fancy thing about a 2 millimeter hole, again, this is to do with clearance and all of the rest of it. Correctly select the circle and the circle and the circle. Is that when you come to join these two pieces together, you can take, once you've 3D printed all of this stuff off of your FDM 3D printer, you can slot these pieces together and run some spare filament through this hole. Filament, of course, being 1.75 millimeters, and this hole being a 2 millimeter hole printed shrinks down a little bit, and it actually just about fits. I've done this. I've seen this on a couple of designs before, and I've actually incorporated it into at least one of my designs already. Well, two now if you count this. So, there you go. That should work just fine. And then if you want to take it apart, or rather use two bits of filament, use one bit of filament in each hole, because it will go through the equivalent part on the other piece. And then to take it apart, you just take a pin or the kind of nib of a pen, a biro or something, and poke them out, grab hold of them from the other end with like tweezers or a pair of pliers. It should slide out fairly easily. Check out the channel starties and sodas. If there's people doing things better than me, I don't want to know. So what I should do now is test this in the software by copying the rail, copy, paste, and then my second one, I want to rotate it by 180 degrees, and then line it up as if it was going, as if this was a second printed piece. So what we should find, and we do, is that there is a clearance there and an equivalent clearance there. Excellent. And now if we work out exactly where this should be, minus 200, minus 200 and something. There we go. So that is it perfectly lined up. And if you see, there is this slim gap here, but again, that's printer tolerance. Should be strong enough. Unboiled water on your hot chocolate. You should do milk. Just cold milk. Cold milk and chocolate powder. Which has different names in different parts of the world. And we're now going to get into a debate about language. And is it right to call it a cold chocolate or a chocolate milkshake? Or Americans call it chocolate milk, I think. Just chocolate milk. I mean, make fun of the Americans about everything, but that's kind of a sensible name. I'm surprised at how easy this was. So, what are the failings of this design? let's think about it like that. Because I've got this anchored at the bottom, kind of, it's anchored twice at the bottom. So in terms of the left and right, it's not gonna, so if we consider it from kind of this kind of direction, it's not gonna wobble this way because we've got an anchor on one side and we've got an anchor on the other side. But what it might do is wobble like up and down because there's only an anchor at the bottom and not at the top. And so if we get rid of that second rail piece, do we want to make also another small, it would have to be smaller than these, pin here and a hole, an equivalent hole here, and then another couple of pinholes for filament up at the top? Is that required? I don't know is the answer. Might be a sensible idea to try it. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna try it. So let's go back into the sketch. Yes. Let's work out how much space we've got to work with. We've got 5mm on either side, so 2.5mm radius circle will fill that. But if we go, let's define our center points. Let's see about a 2mm hole. That's 2mm diameter. About 4mm diameter. I need to make one that's 4.1. Let's go for 3. 3.1. Yeah, 3mm is going to be better. We actually need the smaller one on this side, 2.8. Yes. And the larger one on this side, so 3.1. Yes. I made these construction lines. There we go. Not construction lines. So that's the hole. We pull that by. And how deep there's this? This one doesn't need to be as deep because this one's not taking the. Or is it? Is this one going to take the strain? Because if it's weighted, or if it is flexing from weight elsewhere, it could be either way. So actually, kind of does. Let's see how that looks. Thanks for popping by and have fun with your D&D. Okay, I think this is going quite well. Oh, you're kidding. Oh, of course. New sketch, unfortunately. Project and include all that. So now we're going to go again and make some more of these tiny, tiny little holes. And we need 2.2 there. And also 2mm on the inside. And then we make 2mm circles there. Finish sketch, and we pull these through the entire piece. How's that? Yeah, I'm going to go on and say that that's probably. Ooh, I'll tell you what, that's thin. I've cut a 2mm hole in a 2.8mm peg. That's not going to be very strong, is it? I think I'm going to have to go back and do that as 4mm. I think I'm going to have to make that 3.8 and 4.1. Yeah, that's better. That's going to be much stronger. Right, let's do the same trick we did earlier with copy. And wait, no, just copy paste. And 180 degree there, 30mm, and then minus 200 and a little bit. Zoom in. I think it was 0.2 because we had a 0.2 offset. That works. Hey Hagrid, how you doing? Yeah, that lines up nicely. So that is then 2 pegs on each side. So sideways movement is going to be dampened, and there's also 2 pegs high, so horizontal flex is going to be minimized. You need 4 pieces of filament, just little scrap filament, it's fine, just poke them in there and that'll hold it in nice and tightly. And again, removing that is just with a screwdriver or a wire or a pen, poke it in from one end and pull it out from the other. Yeah. That is probably all that needs to be. It is somewhat complex. But the one thing I really need to do here is work out how I can recreate all of this geometry, the pegs, the holes, that lot, without having to go through every single step of drawing it out. I'm pretty sure that there's a way in Fusion to copy a series of steps. So I'd copy the 2 sketches and the extrudes off of it and apply that to a surface that is not where the original surface is, like even at a different angle and a different position. I just need to learn how to do that. I'll tell you what, we're over an hour now, so I'll kind of drag it up to being done. But just before I finish, I will show you one slightly interesting factor, and that is the difference between a Roman archway and a Gothic archway. Given that Warhammer 40k tends to use an awful lot of Gothic architecture, specifically or particularly the Gothic Archway, I can probably just show off how to do an arch. How big should a window be? Where's my nearest model? Say hello. Any of you are kind of poke on my YouTube's front page, you will see that there is a video coming on this on Friday. This is a very rare model, probably, or possibly, I'm not certain, but possibly this is the rarest model I own. Let's go for a 20 mil. That's a bit much, but everything in 40k is a bit much. So the base of both the Gothic and the Roman Archway is a rectangle, and that rectangle could be a number of things. Usually long and slender, and so what I will probably do here is actually make this quite a bit thinner. There we go. Yeah. So the Roman Archway is defined quite simply as a circle that meets the end points of your rectangle at tangents. One way to draw that is by going to the midpoint of your midpoint between the two sides at the very top and drawing a circle. And you draw a circle to the tops so that it touches both of the tops, and that will necessarily, because geometry, become a tangent. So what you end up with is this shape, which is a Roman arch. A Gothic archway is defined slightly differently. Gothic archway has two radiuses that join at the top. The center points of each of the circles that you define those radius by is the top of the opposite side's side. So if I make a circle from this side, so the center point of this circle is now at the opposite side rather than in the middle. And then if I do the same in reverse, so there, if you see this kind of pointed archway here, this is how you define a Gothic arch. And so if I again select the correct pieces, this is a Gothic archway. How do I separate the different pieces? Can I just snip all of this? Yeah, I guess I can. This is a messy, messy way of doing it, but I guess, yeah, that's fine. Change selection of that whole part. Let's make a, yeah, 1 mil's fine. Cut that all the way through. Get my sketch back. Nope. Yep, that one. And pull that. No, I do not want a symmetric. I want a 2 sides. Join. How far did I come out the side? Just 1 mil. Ah, who cares? I can clean up in a minute. And I'll do that by just cutting off the end of this. This is the messiest work I've ever done. This is absolutely, on the grand scheme of 3D modeling, this is a nasty way of doing this. However, it gets the job done, and there we go. There's a Gothic archway that's nicely framed on the side there. Isn't that cool? However, before I put that in, what I sort of want to do is also duplicate. Does it want to be a? I guess it does. Recreate that in. Oh no, I've made that unhappy. Right. Duplicate that. What was the duplicate? Spacing 3. How did you recreate? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've done this. Yeah, that's not the... I'm sure it is this. I should just be able to select that. And then... Why is it not playing along? What am I doing wrong? What I could do is just create 2 more windows and do it all. Yeah, fine. Let's do it that way. Mainly because I just can't remember how to use that tool correctly. So we had a 6 and a 20. Wow, this is why I wanted to use the duplication tool, because this is dull. This is dull. Yeah, as soon as I finish these windows, I'll call the stream. So if anyone has any questions about anything I'm working on directly, or anything that I am, or anything else that I'm working on aside from this, post the questions in the comment and I'll answer those before I finish. Yeah, using the arc tool is a lot neater than using full circles. I used the circles because I wanted to show the process, and it was easier to do so like that. There's a couple more Gothic arches. Let's go for an offset of 1 mil and an offset of 1 mil. Finish the sketch. Now I can edit this feature to also include the arch, the other windows, and then this one to include the frames. And then if I go back to the end of the timeline and hide that, there we go. At great length, with far too much effort, there are... Did I? Where did I make that mistake? Oh, I know what I did. Okay. So if you notice these three are at different... I'm just going to quickly grab a drink because my throat is burning. If you notice that these three windows are at different height, if anyone can work out why that is the case, I know why, but does anyone else know in the audience? Because that is kind of funny and is a very easy mistake that I have just made. So all three of these windows, I started by defining the inside perimeter of the frame, and then I made the outside perimeter of the frame by referencing the inner and expanding it by 1mm. When I set the location for the side windows, I used the bottom. Can I create a measurement? From there, I measured from the outside edge and then used that to reference the inside edge. And so these two side windows are 1mm lower down than the other two because I used the wrong reference point. Because you did it wrong. Thank you, Paul, for confirming that. I need to make some ends for this. A little nose. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to wrap up at some point. I'll wrap up now. None of you are asking any questions in the comments, so I will say thank you to everyone who has popped by and followed along with my magazine button for the Talon adapter and some additional little pegs and holes for my hero scale suspension railway. So what you're saying is you did it wrong. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thank you for confirming what I said. Shut up. Yeah, so there is links in the description to all sorts of other things I get up to, including the Back to the Brush podcast, which I co-host with Paul Allen in the comments, making fun of me. And also Foximits, our lead researcher for the Audio Redactors, does help out occasionally in between long stretches of hindrance. Also in the description is a donation link if you wish to throw a few pennies my way. I'm trying to get a decent camera setup for filming models, because using my phone to film stuff that's this big is doesn't come out well. So thank you very much for watching. I'm ED-SKaR, and I always will be.